Hello everyone, welcome to our Lunch and Learning section 2 of the year. My name is Nicolas. I'm part of the technical office of the SPA Brazil as a market assistant in communication assistant too. So in our Lunch and Learn today, we talk about fast decision making tools for Asphaltene Risk Assessment. This webinar now will be hosted in English. You can send your questions in Portuguese or English. We can send it to our speaker after the presentation, and that's it. First of all, thank you for joining us, the Lunch Learning. I will ask you to follow our LinkedIn page, Flow Assurance Brazil, right here, Flow Assurance Brazil, and our LinkedIn page to SPA Brazil and Technical Committees Office too, right on LinkedIn. We have a lot of tech committees like reservoir, flow assurance, decommissioning, operations and maintenance, subsea, and many others with many events right here in the SPA Brazil YouTube channel. So be part of the SPA to watch webinars, mini courses, and so on. We have a lot of the benefits for our members. Some benefits are for exclusive only for members. So, and doubts you can send it and doubts in chat. We can help you all with the affiliation in SPA. So to start our webinar, I would like to come to our virtual stage, Maria Rosa. It's our it's a member of the Flow Assurance Committee. So hello, Maria.
Hello, everyone. On the behalf of the SP Brazil Flow Assurance Technical Committee, welcome to the second edition of the Lunch and Learn session. So today, the event will be held in English and our speakers will discuss about fast decision-making tools for asphaltene risk assessment. My name is Maria and I'm part of the board of directors of this committee. First, I would like to invite those who are not members of our community yet to become part of it. You may point your cell phone camera on the QR code that's been presented in the screen to join our community. As well, you may also contact us through the email that is being displayed. This is our events of the year. We have planned 6 lunch and learn / chat sessions for this year. Soon, we are going to announce more details about the first SPE Brazil Flow Chat session of the year that will happen in August, where the speakers will discuss about modelagem e simulação da deposição de parafina em ductos. You are more than welcome to join our discussion. Pay attention on our social media to get more details about the upcoming events. So today, I would like to invite to the stand our chairperson, Professor Marcelo Castro. Professor Marcelo Castro is a mechatronics engineer and holds a Ph.D. in mechanical engineering from the São Carlos School of Engineering at USP. He is an associate professor at the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering at UNICAMP. Since 2020, he was served as the director of the Center for Energy and Petroleum Studies, CPETRO, at UNICAMP, and coordinates the Alpha Research Group focused on artificial lift and flow assurance. He is involved in research projects funded by companies such as Petrobras, Total Energies, Equinor, Petronas, Prio, and by FAPESP. So, Professor Marcelo Castro, welcome to the stand.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to welcome our speaker today, Dr. Charlie van der Geest. We used to work together for many years, and now Charlie is working at Repsol Technology Center in Madrid. He is a senior scientist there with over 15 years of experience leading flow assurance research projects. Charlie brings deep technical insight into ensuring safe and efficient hydrocarbon transport across complex production systems. In recent years, Charlie has focused on carbon capture and storage projects, mainly concentrating on flow assurance, thermodynamics, and multi-phase flows. So let's welcome Charlie with the presentation. He's going to present a fast and practical approach to evaluating asphaltene risks. In this case, in talking about when we have gas lift optimization and EOR techniques involving gas injections, and what can happen related to asphaltene precipitation, both in the within the production system and the reservoir. Charlie, welcome. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for accepting our invitation. So feel free to start. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending where you are. So this is a discussion of a tool that we use, that we developed to do asphalting risk management, right? And I have two disclaimers to do here before we start. First is that that's a lot of AI generated images and in this presentation. And even the tool itself is a multi-parameter regression model, which nowadays is called AI. So even the tool itself is a kind of AI um, tool. And the second is that this is not a really technical deep dive on asphalting modeling. This is more because I guess it's a broad audience, right? So this is more how we approach some kind of problems and what we do when we develop tools for our assets. So let's start. So let's imagine you are a young engineer, right? Just finished your engineering degree, physics degree, mathematics, or whatever, and you decide to enter the oil industry, right? And then you do interviews and all that, and you get hired by a major oil and gas company. And then you're sent to an asset, and I like how artificial intelligence see an asset of controlling room to work as a flow assurance production engineer, right? So you get there, and then your boss tells you now your job is to increase oil production, which is actually all our jobs. So that's the goal of the whole company, right? So you need to produce more oil and gas and more efficiently, right? That's your job. And then you get to your asset, and you look at it and you say, but how what tools do I have? How can I do that? And your senior colleagues will tell you, because you know nothing about it, of course, you've just been hired. They will tell you that you have a gas lift system, and you have an injection well in your reservoir where you can do enhanced oil recovery, right? You are, and those are the tools you have. So that's nice. You have some tools to work, but then someone tells you, yeah, but your crude has asphaltenes, right? And then you're like, but what do I do with that information, right? That's a complex problem. I don't really know how to deal with asphaltenes, and I have no idea what they are. And then this is where we start. So that's the kind of the framework where the people usually get themselves in when they're trying to optimize some fields, right? And then so let's explain some key concepts. The first is attempting to define asphaltenes, right? So asphaltenes is a nightmare to define. Some people, the definition might be this solubility thing. If it's soluble in one thing and not soluble in the other, then it's asphaltenes. You can define based on some characteristics, some properties of it, but they're kind of a nightmare. So what is usually the way we see of them is in the polarity molecular weight space. They are on the top right, right? So they have really high molecular weight and really high polarity. So just to explain for those who are not really aware, this is methane, ethane, light hydrocarbons, and then here you have saturates, paraffins, and all that stuff. Then you go up the ladder of polarity, and then eventually you get to the asphaltenes, which are these massive complex molecules, right? They're really hard to understand. And the problem of asphaltenes, if they are, which there are a bunch of crudes everywhere that have them, is the asphaltene can deposit, and it's especially hard when you have a lot of equipment. So for example, if you have ESPs, you can have asphaltenes in your seal, and when they precipitate there, they break the seal. You have to change the pump, or they can block a valve. If you have a choke valve with asphaltenes, then you are in trouble, or they can cause all sorts of problems. And then you can have sludge formation, and sludge is a mixture of all bad things you can find in your crude production system. Mixture sand with scales, with everything, high viscosity thing, and the asphaltenes also increase a lot the viscosity of the crude, right? The highest crude oils with the high viscosity in the world are full really asphaltene crude oils, and they have the property of stabilizing emotions, right? So because they're complex molecular structure, they usually go to the interface and stabilize the emotions. So you have a big problem in your separator when your emotions get there, obviously. The good thing about asphaltenes is not all bad. The good thing of asphaltenes is that uh, they're not the worst usually, because they have a window of problem. They happen in a window, and the reason that happens is because the solubility of asphaltenes depends basically on light hydrocarbons. So as your light hydrocarbons go out of your matrix, your liquid, the solubility of the asphaltenes increase. So if you're going down, going up your well, and then you reach point pressure actually where your asphaltenes start to precipitate, right? And then you have the worst point around your bubble point, right? And then when this gas is released, then the stability, the solubility of the asphaltenes, if we're thinking only on solubility terms, increases, and then the solubility increasing, it goes back to the same patamar of solubility. This is solubility of asphaltene concentration, and then you go back to the asphaltene to the same level, right? So what happens basically is all the asphaltene that had precipitated resolubilized, right? This obviously is a plot of equilibrium, right? So this is obviously a transient thing. It doesn't occur immediately, right? So you need to be careful about these specific points, because there's a time that it takes for them to both precipitate and also resolubilize, and so that's the problem. If you have a pump right here, then you might be in trouble. But if your pump is way up here, then you're not. But it's also important to keep in mind that this window changes with time, as your production changes, as your uh, I don't know, you get water breakthrough, or you start to injecting some chemicals, or I don't know, you start producing a new reservoir in the same well. Whatever reason, once it changes things, this window will change, right? Where the asphaltenes might be a problem, and once they are resolubilized, then you're fine. You're not no longer a big issue, because they will increase the viscosity of the liquid a little bit. Of course, it can be a lot, but you can deal with that as long as it's dissolved in the liquid. Then it's fine. So this is called asphaltene onset pressure, which is the higher asphaltene onset pressure and the lower asphaltene onset pressure. And this is, we'll see, this is what our tool are based on. And this is how we will go through that. So one thing to keep in mind that's important, when you mix streams, obviously you're changing the composition of each one when they're mixed, right? And whatever is one, they could be both stable regarding asphaltenes, and when you mix them, they become unstable. So depending on the asphaltene type, depending on whatever you have dissolved on that reservoir, you can create instabilities when you're mixing. So it's important to keep in mind that when you're mixing, to have a full recombination and compatibility analysis, right? And this is just a sidetrack. It's good to keep in mind that for water as well. So when you injecting water from one reservoir to another reservoir, then you will generate scales. You will know you can generate scales, right? Because the compatibility of this water you can mix several components and generate scales. And here is basically the same thing. So it's important to evaluate how your fluid combine will work before mixing everything up. And then another thing that changes is the gas lift, and the gas lift, as we will discuss, which is the point here, and the injection for EOR. This both these gases, as I just told you, as you add gas to your liquid, then you destabilize, you decrease the solubility of asphaltenes in your system. So that can be a problem, right? So again, what is UR really briefly, just for you to have an idea? Here we have very brief explanation of UR. UR is a full science on itself. You can have several strategies to mix the UR with water, then CO2, then water, CO2 again, or whatever fluids. But basically, you get the fluid you're producing, you pass through the production, the manifold if you have one, and then you go to your facilities, and your facilities you have a separation tank. The gas that comes out from that separation tank, you can treat it or do something with it, and then you inject back into your reservoir, right? That's how you deal with EOR in this case. If you're injecting gas, you can inject polymer or whatever. So the thing is, as you inject the gas, you will change the composition of your reservoir. So you need to be careful that gas in your reservoir will not cause asphaltenes there, right? And gas lift is basically the same idea of the system, I mean, but instead of going all the way to the reservoir, you'll have a valve here. And this valve, as I show here, the production system here, the well, and then the crude is flowing here, going to the tubby, and the gas lift is flowing downwards, right? And then he enters the valve. This is just a sketch, obviously. Usually it's a quite complex valve, but anyway, you start producing liquid and with gas, right? Now gas lift has several advantages. You have several production strategies. You can use ESPs, you can use gas lift, intermittent gas lift, or whatever. There are several types of pumps strategies for producing more crude. But then you have the good of gas lift is that you reduce fluid viscosity and density, both of them, and then it's quite easy to implement, and you have just a few moving parts. So it's quite cost effective actually to implement gas lift. But the thing is, if you don't care about asphaltenes, right? It's like I don't care about asphaltenes. Who said this could have asphaltenes? I really don't care about it. Then you will maximize your gas lift, and that's it. So if you have only one variable to optimize, and it is the crude without asphaltenes, then you will increase your gas lift rate here in the x-axis to have a maximum production. In this case, it's a real simulation. You have also water here, of course. That's why you have liquid rate higher than crude rate, right? But the point here is that's a maximum. And if you're only considering your flow to your system, right, then this is the point you say, oh, I want to inject 5.6 million cubic feet, standard cubic feet per day, and that's it, right? Obviously, you have limitations on your gas lift valves in your system. 5.7 it's quite high. You usually have 3, 4, I don't know, depend on a system. But anyway, the point is you will try to maximize your flow rate, right? So this is what you would like to do, and this is predictions by classic models of fluid dynamics, multi-phase flow systems. So okay, the setup is done, right? You understand where you are and you understand the problem. Now, introducing a field-oriented tool that we do. So the first thing that is really important, at least for us, I mean, I like, and my peers like, when I was in university and now at the Center of Technology, we love to discuss thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, multi-phase flow, all of that. Oh, this pseudo component has these properties. What does that mean? And all of that. And that's scientifically very interesting. And it's quite awesome to do that. The problem is the user do not care, and you should know the user do not care, right? If you want to ask for Uber, you don't want to know how the satellites are calculating your position. You just want to press the button and go, right? So the user that's making daily decisions, they don't care about the thermodynamics of your crude oil. They want to know if they can push the button or not, and that's it. So you always need to make a decision and make a tool oriented to the user that is focused on the user, and the user need to make daily decisions which cost a lot of money, the decisions obviously, based on your model. And so they have very little input and they need to make a decision with it, and that's it. That's where you are there to help. So the decision is that, can I inject? Where can I inject? Can I increase the gas lift flow rate? Should I do EOR? Obviously there are a bunch of variation. I'm oversimplifying here, but just for you to get the point, right? That's what your tool should do. Should make a really fast decision to point out where you're going, right? So this is the visualization of the tool, right? It's a classic envelope of asphaltenes, nothing new. But the thing is, the user only has to input the gas lift flow rate. Everything else we calculate. And then he gets something like this, right? He gets the whole system. Just a brief side notes on the model. So this is equilibrium model, equation of state, RSK, and we fitted it for several experimental data, right? So this is not a general for all fields kind of tool, right? You need to set up your asphaltene model, and that's where the work is, right? You have to model the asphaltene, see if it fits your data, actually fits your data to the model, actually, and then you have a calibrated asphaltene model, right? And this is an equilibrium model. As I mentioned, all this is transient. You have all sorts of models for aggregating asphaltenes and all that, and none of that enters here. This is a really simple equilibrium based on equation of state model, right? And then once you have the model, you can predict this, right? And what it does is you can either change the gas lift, which you do increasing the gas lift flow rate, or you can increase the GOR, and that's basically it, right? So what happens? This is what happens. This is a visualization of the tool. Obviously, this is not what people see. I made this for this presentation only, because for you to have an idea what's going on when you increase your flow rate. So basically, what you're doing, you're increasing your asphaltene onset pressure, and you're increasing your saturation pressure, right? And that's interesting and important, because once you get to the point where you could have a problem, which is for example, if you're injecting the gas lift here, then you can have asphaltene problems after that gas lift, right? As it goes up your system, everything from the gas lift onwards, you'll have problems. So the wellhead, the flow line, facilities, if you are in that window, right? So if your window starts very close to your facility, then you might have a problem in the facility. If your window starts in the wellhead, then you have with a flow line problem. Then that's the analysis you want to do, because here the wellhead is no longer uh, in the problem range, in the problem window, right? This is where you might have a problem, right? And so this, if you are inside the envelope, that's where you need to be really careful, right? So this is obviously, this is animation for this presentation. What the user gets is a kind of yes no answer, and if he wants to plot, he can. But it's basically, oh, you are inside the envelope, be careful, right? Or you are this part is outside the envelope, or start injecting. chemicals or stop injecting chemicals. And a good thing to remember is that this is a slow process, right? You don't change the flow rate on a daily basis, so they don't need to use this on a daily basis. It's a little bit longer, right? So what happens when you inject in AOR? It's the same kind of problem, but more complicated, because because this is based on molar concentration, right? So if you inject in the reservoir or in the well, it's not really relevant for the phase envelope, but it is relevant where the problem can occur, right? If you inject in the EOR, you can have problems in the reservoir, in the near wellbore. You can have problems below the gas lift, and that's a way bigger problem. Why? Because if you have a problem in your flow line, you can clean it. If you have a problem in around your gas lift, you can clean it. But if you have a problem in your reservoir, then you can't. And the other problem is that a lot of things can explain a pressure drop increase, for example, right? So once you have a pressure drop increase and you are inside the envelope, there is a good chance it's also things. But it could also be, I don't know, scales or whatever. And you can sample your well, of course, but if it's in the reservoir, that's way harder to isolate the phenomena, right? So I'm getting to my conclusions here. I hope it's clear what this tool does, and how we approach the problems. And just a few comments, which are, uh, once you are inside the envelope, there is a really high risk that asphaltenes will precipitate. Again, this is a transient phenomena, and our model is an equilibrium, right? Model, because it has to run fast and all that kind of reason. So the thing is, if you are in the upper pressure, then being equilibrium assumes that as soon as you reach that pressure, then you'll have asphaltenes, and that's quite conservative, right? Because it's a transient process, right? So the worst case scenario, which is in the upper part, the asphaltene onset pressure, the upper one, which is when you enter the envelope in your system, that's conservative. So we can trust that, in the sense that if you are inside the envelope, then you might want to start injecting inhibitors. But for going out of the envelope, then it's the other way around, because the lower, first of all, the lower is very poorly understood. We do kind of symmetric around the bubble point. The lower asphaltene pressure, which is the phenomenon of resolubilization, right, is very poorly understood, and the time that it takes, it's not really known. And but because it's not such a big problem, we don't, that's good enough, right? We are a little bit conservative on it. We make sure that if you are, we put the error of margin reasonable, and that's it. We don't need to put too much effort on understanding that in too much detail. So the thing about EOR is that you cannot inject chemicals. I mean, you can, but you could, but you don't, right? Because then you affect the whole reservoir, and you don't know where that will go. If you are inside the well, you do, but in the reservoir you don't. So sampling is the only way to test a hypothesis. And even when you do sampling, which is quite expensive, of course. You have offshore fields. You need to sample it. Sometimes you need to squeeze it because you think it's scale and it's not a scale problem, and this kind of thing. And then you have to squeeze with, instead of acid, you need to squeeze with heptane or whatever. You have different ways to to test your hypothesis, right? But usually what happens is, if you can deal with that pressure drop, you just keep on producing, right? Because it's too expensive to intervene in a well and do a sampling campaign. It's too expensive, so it's not that bad. You just continue. And then And this is kind of a joke, but it's serious, right? There's reality, then there's sampling or experimenting, and then there are models, and the model is always it's always an approximation, right? And the message I want to send here is not that you shouldn't trust any model. That's not it at all. The message is you need to understand the limitations of your model, right? Because I've seen quite a few times that a person use a software or a model for something that that model is not good at, and then suddenly that model is not good for anything, right? And the software is bad, or whatever, and then that's the problem of the user in the sense, because they don't know what they're doing basically. So you need to understand very carefully and study very carefully the limitations of your models to make informed decisions, because this is important, right? It's not I run a simulation, and whatever comes out, I'll buy it. That's my decision. You can do that. You have to be very thorough, be very careful with the results of your model and everything, right? One of the reasons, especially for this kind of system, is that it's highly nonlinear. If you see Navier-Stokes equations, which is for single phase flow, they are highly nonlinear. Now, if you add molecular dynamic, I mean chemical, thermodynamics, equilibrium, and transient on thermodynamics, on chemical balance, on or whatever, all that combined, because asphaltene is the best way to model is doing molecular dynamics, right? So you would have to do a molecular dynamic with Navier-Stokes and all that to have a better understanding of your system, and you cannot do that because it will take forever, basically, and there's no model to do it actually. But anyway, the message is you need to understand what your model is set up to do, what it can do, and then you can consider it correctly, this whatever you're doing, and that you need to be really careful with. And the good thing about these big companies is they're always very experienced people who on it that had a lot of experience before, and you should talk to them and go after your peers and your colleagues that have more experience. They know what happens, they know what is serious and what's not, and sometimes you think what you found is really serious, and it's not really. So I guess that's it. Thank you. I hope that was informative. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm open for questions. That would be nice.
Thank you, Charlie, very much. It's really a good point and how to analyze everything. And I think at the end when you, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what happened. Okay, but I think that the whole work is quite interesting and quite impressive. And the final conclusions and the highlights related to use the models and the simulators and etc. in the specific things that they are designed for. It's quite interesting.
It's important. It's important.
Important. Yeah, it's really important. So we have some questions. Okay. So let's start with the first one. It's from Adriana Vieira. Is the SARA method still the most commonly used for determining the asphaltene fraction in the oil industry, or has anything evolved in this regard?
As far as I know, yes. That's how we measure it, and nothing really new on
Yeah.
asphalt and characterization measurements. Yeah.
Okay. I think here we're doing something extra, but more related to PVT analysis and etc.
No,
Because
sure.
there
We
is a discussion. Yeah, there is a discussion if we can get the same asphaltenes with depending on what you're using to get the asphaltenes from the oil,
definitely.
the
No,
pressurization, it's
that
quite different. Yeah, and at this point, there is this point in the literature. Yes.
so the thing is, asphaltenes are poorly defined, right? And
Yeah.
then you, depending on how the process you do, there will come out different things, and you can see even different colors of whatever come out from your process. And if you do at high pressure, which is the conditions where they precipitate, there are very few experiments in the literature to quantify, right? and they are very different, the asphaltenes from the field, from the ones obtained in the lab
Yeah.
for precipitation leptane, or whatever.
Mhm.
And the thing is, that's all nice and good for when you are researching the asphaltenes, but
Yeah.
when you have 200 wells to measure the asphaltenes, you need a process, and the
Mhm.
process is SARA, and that's it,
Yeah.
right?
That's
It's
it.
like I need to define a process to characterize 2,000 wells. I don't know how many, and that's it. And
Yeah.
it's still SARA. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do,
Okay.
depending on the well, we do a little bit more study on asphaltene precipitation, varying pressure, of course, and that we do on PVT cells, and then you can measure asphaltene onset pressure and all that. We do that for characterizing this model, for example, that we showed you. That's an input of the model to make sure the model is predicting the asphaltene onset pressure correctly.
Okay. Thank you, Charlie. I think we have more questions. Yes, Maria? I have one. Okay. Oh, Maria.
Go ahead,
Now we
Professor
can see.
Marcelo. We do not have anyone from the audience. You can ask one, then I have another one as
I
well.
have at least two. And the first one
Okay.
is, yeah, how often is important to do the analysis of asphaltene risk? Okay, daily, weekly, monthly.
So that's a
What
really
do you
good
think
question.
about?
We usually do it monthly or something like that, right? We thought a lot about integrating this kind of model to PI or whatever, or the monitoring system, but because it's not a daily basis thing, you do not change drastically your prediction overnight. So
Yeah.
because that's not the case, then you can do a decision every month and see if, oh, now I need to inject assault inhibitor, and once you start injecting assault inhibitor, if you're doing ghosting, for example, you won't stop. You just keep, you can adjust the concentration, but that's it basically. So it's not a daily basis thing.
Okay. Okay.
I would say a monthly, but even depending on how stable your system is, it can be even a lower frequency.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. If you have a question.
Yeah, let me go now. So, Charlie, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank
It
you.
was very interesting. So, I have one question. We know those who works with flow assurance. We know that the kinetics of the hydrates, they are pretty fast compared to the one from wax. We know that whenever we start forming hydrates, we can get a plug. We can get the
Really fast.
pipeline plugged very fast. But
Yeah.
that's not the same when we talk about wax. How does that work for asphaltenes? How is the kinetics of the asphaltene formation and consequently plug?
So the asphaltines cause more problems when they precipitate around equipment, right? When they start to accumulate around equipment, and then break the equipment, or something like that, right? And it's quite a slow process. It's not as fast of definitely not as fast as hydrate, but I would argue it's in the time range of months, if not even more, right? So in that sense, it's more similar to walks. But the thing you want to remember is that walks, even though it's a phase transition phenomenon, walks opposition, um, it's a radial movement, right? So it's slow process. You have heat transfer going on there, which controls everything, and the precipitation is more an equilibrium thermodynamic phenomena, and there's no, the flow. It's basically irrelevant in the sense that turbulence doesn't affect it. The stripping doesn't affect it too much, and so yeah.
Okay, thank you
Did
so
I
much
answer? Yeah, yeah.
for the answer. So
Thank you.
I cannot see any more questions from the audience. I don't know if you have any more person.
I have one extra.
Okay, go
I
ahead,
have a I have
please.
a comment. Yeah, we already faced some problems with asphaltene here. I think when Charlie was working with us here at UNICAMP, we faced some problems with asphaltenes in the seals of ESPs. Do you remember, Charlie?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It decreased the mean time failure very much. I don't remember
Severely, yeah.
why. Yeah, it was very, very problematic situation. I have another question is, as you're working with a model, okay, Charlie, you're trying to predict this. What experimental data are you using to fit the models, to generate
So
and also fit the model? Yeah.
so the first thing is a full PBT characterization, right?
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
depend where you are, your laboratory you're working with, it does a little bit different things, but full PBT characterization, expansions, experiments, and mass constant, and all that. And with that, you fit your equation of state. And then if you're working with equilibrium model like we are, right? So with that equation of state, then you start fitting the asphaltene model, and then you have the concentration of oil stink of the oil, right? You measure the stink oil, and then
Mhm.
you have the testing the PPT, which we usually do, which are assaulting on set pressure when they start to appear and all that. And that's basically the experimental data we use to fit to adjust the model to our equation of states. And we do that for several samples, of course. And then once we have that good model, then we simulate and generate this kind of model.
Okay. Thank you. It's quite interesting, quite complicated as well.
It is.
Okay.
And then the thing about the question of states, how to deal with pseudo components
Yeah.
and these kind of things, it's I would argue that it's not really a science. It's more like a feeling adjustment. You know what I mean? Because there are several ways to do it. If you're talking about optimization, it would be like, I have 35 minimal points of my function, right? So
Wow.
and they all go to the same point. So you can do that several ways, infinite
Yeah.
probably. So
Yeah.
so once you get to a good result, good enough, then that's it. Move forward and go to the next problem.
Okay. Thank you. I think we don't have other questions. I don't have one. I have some comments, but I can leave them for Charlie. Another with a beer in Madrid or Barcelona
That would be
now?
nice. Barcelona, Barcelona. That would be
Barcelona.
lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great
Okay.
subject for a beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a quite nice place. Yeah.
Quite nice. Yeah. Okay. So, Charlie, thank you very much for this
Thank you,
really
guys.
interesting speech. Okay. I think a problem that we're facing in Brazil, that we face around the world, yeah, and we need tools to avoid such problem nowadays. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Maria. Now I'll pass the word to you and to Nicholas.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you all. So that's it. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you all. Bye bye.